Settle in. Find your most comfortable position. Let your breath become steady, and let the Force cradle your dreams tonight. Because right now, you're not just falling asleep. You're gliding through a galaxy far, far away. A place where destinies rise like twin suns, where the hum of lightsabers becomes a lullaby, and where even a secret apprentice can become a spark of hope. Close your eyes, feel the stillness, and may the Force be with you, always. 1. A child of the wreckage. On the shattered world of Kashyyyk, beneath towering Rasha trees swaying gently in the breeze, a child was born into a galaxy already trembling under the rise of the Empire. His name was Galen Merrick, though the stars would one day whisper a different name for him. In those early days, he knew only the warmth of his parents and the quiet hum of the forest around him. Yet destiny had already begun to weave its threads, pulling him toward a storm he could not see. As clone troopers marched across the bark-covered bridges, the Force wrapped around the boy like a fragile cocoon, aware of the life he would become. And somewhere in that stillness, another legend stirred awake. 2. The fall of a Jedi father. On the day Vader arrived, the winds of Kashyyyk seemed to hold their breath. Galen's father, a surviving Jedi, stood alone against the dark figure who stepped through smoke and ruin. Their duel cracked through the treetops like distant thunder, each clash sending ripples through the Force. The child watched, hidden, as his father made his final stand, not as a warrior, but as a parent protecting the fragile hope behind him. When the last echo faded and the Jedi fell, the Forest seemed to mourn in silence. In that tender quiet, Vader sensed something extraordinary, a presence bright and powerful, flickering like a star behind the shadows. And so the path of the apprentice quietly began. 3. Taken by darkness. Vader found the boy small, trembling, and yet unbroken. Galen looked up at the masked figure with wide, unblinking eyes, not in fear, but in raw, unshaped connection. The Force pulsed between them, a silent conversation carried through instinct alone. Vader saw potential and danger and an opportunity hidden from the Emperor's gaze. Without hesitation, he extinguished the lives of those who had witnessed the moment, sealing the child's fate in secrecy. Galen was taken not as a prisoner, but as a tool waiting to be sharpened. Carried aboard a starship, leaving the forest world behind, he watched the canopy fade into clouds and then into stars. And in that dark ascent, another chapter of the Force quietly unfolded. 4. Raised in silence. Galen Merrick's childhood unfolded in the deep, echoing quiet of secrecy. Hidden away in forgotten training chambers and shadowed corridors, he grew without the laughter of other children, without the comfort of a family, without even the knowledge of his true heritage. Instead, he learned from the hum of machinery, the whisper of distant engines, and the rare, heavy footsteps of Darth Vader approaching. The silence shaped him as much as any lesson. It taught him discipline, patience, and an alertness that went beyond sight. In that hush, he learned to listen to the Force not as a friend, nor as a teacher, but as a vast, endless ocean waiting to be understood. And somewhere within that quiet, the boy slowly began to disappear. 5. Whispers of potential Vader sensed something extraordinary in the child, a power that ran deeper than anger or fear, something raw and untamed. Even in his earliest lessons, Galen lifted objects far heavier than his small hands could hold, guided not by strength, but by instinct. The Force swirled around him with unusual intensity, as though it recognized a destiny still unspoken. Vader watched with a mixture of fascination and calculation, seeing in the boy a weapon that could one day shatter even the might of the Emperor. But Galen did not know this. To him, the power felt like a quiet voice, a whisper in the darkness, calling him towards something larger than the life he had been given. And that whisper, soft as starlight, would only grow stronger with time. 6. A saber's first spark. The first time Galen ignited a lightsaber, the world seemed to hold still. The crimson blade hissed to life, casting long shadows across the walls of their hidden chamber. Though the weapon was heavier than he expected, and the heat radiated like a living heartbeat, he felt a strange familiarity in its glow. Vader guided his movements at first. Slow arcs, deliberate stances, the foundational rhythms of combat. But soon, Galen moved with a fluidity that came not from instruction, but from something deep within the Force itself. The blade became an extension of his thoughts, of his quiet longing, of the storm he did not yet understand. And in that soft humming light, the path of the apprentice deepened, drawing him further into the shadows that shaped him. 7. Training in the void. Much of Galen's early training took place aboard lonely starships, drifting through the dark tides of space. Far from planets, far from life, he learned to move as though the void itself were his silent companion. Vader pushed him to wield the Force amid weightlessness, where every motion felt like a whisper, every breath a ripple through the emptiness. In this quiet world of metal corridors and star-flecked windows, Galen adapted to solitude as naturally as others adapt to sunlight. He practiced saber forms in the still hours, the glow of his blade painting red arcs against the cold steel. And through it all, the endless night outside seemed to listen, holding his young ambitions like constellations waiting to be named. 8. The Hidden Apprentice. From the beginning, Galen's existence was wrapped in secrecy. Vader kept him concealed from the Emperor's gaze, shaping him in the shadows like a weapon forged behind closed doors. No records bore his name. No whispers reached Palpatine's throne. To the galaxy, he did not exist. But in those quiet, unseen hours, Vader fed him visions of a future where master and apprentice could overthrow the Emperor together. Galen absorbed these promises like distant stars reflecting on still water, bright, alluring, and impossible to reach. He believed his purpose was singular, defined wholly by the darkness that raised him. Yet beneath that belief, small flickers of uncertainty glowed, soft, delicate, and waiting to bloom. In secrecy, he grew stronger and more divided. 9. Bound by fear and loyalty. The bond between Vader and Galen was forged not in affection, but in fear, discipline, and a strange sense of belonging born from isolation. Galen revered Vader as the only constant in his fractured life, the voice that commanded him, the presence that judged him, the shadow that defined him. Yet this loyalty was threaded with unease, for he sensed the truth. The Sith teach not through trust, but through power and control. Still, as he grew, he clung to Vader's approval like a drifting ship clings to a guiding star. It was all he knew, all he had. And in the quiet corners of his mind, that fragile connection shaped the man and the storm he would one day become. 10. Dreams of stars unseen. Even as a child shaped by secrecy, Galen sometimes dreamed of places he had never visited, worlds bathed in warm sunrise, oceans shimmering under moons, bustling cities filled with voices instead of silence. These visions drifted through his sleep like gentle waves, soft reminders of a life he might have known if destiny had not carved a darker path. He woke from these dreams, feeling an ache he could not name, a quiet longing, a whisper of the Force calling from beyond the confines of starships and training chambers. Though he never spoke of them to Vader, the dreams lingered. They were small lanterns glowing inside him, illuminating the faintest outline of who he might one day choose to become. 11. Lessons of brutality. Vader's teaching was unyielding, forged from the same fire that shaped the Empire. Galen learned through trials designed to push him to the edge and then beyond it. Sparring sessions with training droids lasted until sweat stung his eyes and his muscles trembled like overstressed metal. Vader taught that hesitation was weakness, that mercy was a crack in one's armor, that strength was the only truth worth holding. Each failure was met with harsh correction, every victory with quiet, oppressive expectation. Yet Galen absorbed these lessons not with bitterness, but with determination, believing they were the path to Vader's approval. The saber strikes, the lightning bursts, the forced endurance, all became steps in a journey he thought he was born to walk. Though behind each lesson, a quiet doubt continued to stir. 12. Learning to hunt Jedi. To prepare him for the missions that awaited, Vader taught Galen the art of tracking Jedi. Warriors who moved like ghosts, guided by a light he had never known. He studied their forms, their philosophies, their weaknesses. He practiced sensing their presence in the Force, learning to distinguish its calm glow from the cold pulse of the dark. These lessons were not merely about combat. They were about understanding his enemies on an instinctive level. In the silent training halls, Galen imagined the Jedi he might one day face. Wise, resolute, powerful in ways different from Vader. And though he trained to destroy them, a part of him wondered what truth they carried, a truth the darkness had never shown him. And so, another thread of his destiny quietly tightened. 13. The weight of expectation. From the moment he could hold a lightsaber steady, Galen felt the invisible pressure of Vader's expectations pressing upon him like the gravity of a dying star. Every movement he made, every breath he took during training, seemed measured against an impossible standard. Vader spoke rarely of approval, and never of pride. Instead, he offered only the next challenge, the next test, the next reminder that Galen's power must grow, or he would become useless. Yet in this relentless demand, Galen believed he saw a kind of purpose. If he could meet Vader's expectations, perhaps he could rise above the shadows that confined him. And so, with every swing of his blade, he carried the silent weight of a future he barely understood. 14. A blade of shadow. When Galen crafted the lightsaber that would become his own, the process felt sacred. A private ritual in the quiet machinery of his hidden life. The crystal he attuned to pulsed with volatile energy, aligning with his turbulent emotions and the storm rising inside him. When the blade ignited, its crimson glow painted the chamber walls with the promise of destruction and the possibility of transformation. Holding it, Galen felt both empowered and strangely hollow, as though the weapon reflected the emptiness carved by his upbringing. Still, it became an extension of his breath, his heartbeat, his identity as Vader's secret apprentice. In the soft hum of its light, he sensed both his power and the shadows that claimed him. 15. Tests of loyalty. Vader tested Galen not only through combat, but through deception. Again and again, he orchestrated betrayals, harsh illusions meant to reveal whether the apprentice's loyalty ran deeper than fear. Sometimes, Galen was ordered to eliminate allies he had barely begun to trust. Other times, Vader staged lethal confrontations to see how the boy would respond under pressure. Each trial left unseen bruises on Galen's spirit, teaching him that loyalty in the Sith tradition was a fragile, shifting thing. Yet Galen clung to Vader with unwavering devotion, believing each betrayal was part of a greater plan. In the quiet after these tests, he often sat alone, letting his heartbeat settle as he tried to understand the nature of allegiance in a world built on shadows. And somewhere in those reflections, cracks began to form. 16. Secrets upon secrets. Galen grew up surrounded by secrets, each one layered atop another like veils of mist in a dark forest. Vader kept him hidden from the Emperor not merely out of caution, but out of ambition, a plan to one day seize the throne through the apprentice he shaped in silence. Yet even this was only part of the truth. Palpatine's watchful gaze reached farther than most realized, and there were moments when Galen felt an unfamiliar presence brushing against his awareness, like cold fingers searching through shadows. The galaxy he was raised to navigate was a web of lies and half-truths, and though he served within it, he sensed the tension beneath every thread. These secrets became the air he breathed, and the chains he could not see. 17. The nature of Sith apprenticeship. Though Galen believed himself unique, his role followed a cruel tradition embedded in Sith history. Apprentices were not meant to be cherished students. They were tools, sharpened for a singular purpose and discarded when no longer useful. Vader molded him with the same merciless intent once used on him. Through their bond, Galen learned the paradox of the Sith. Power was to be craved, yet trust was forbidden. Loyalty was demanded, yet betrayal was inevitable. He internalized these lessons without understanding their cost. In the still hours after training, as he sat alone with only his thoughts and the hum of distant engines, he wondered if all apprentices felt this quiet ache, a longing for connection in a place where connection was weakness. And the Force whispered softly that his path would diverge from theirs. 18. The apprentice who questioned. Over time, a subtle change began to grow within Galen, a questioning spark, faint at first, like a star glimpsed through fog. He watched how Vader treated those beneath him, how the Empire crushed worlds for obedience, how fear shaped every life it touched. These observations stirred something unfamiliar in him, something almost gentle. When he encountered suffering during missions, he found himself hesitating, wondering whether power must always bring harm. Though he pushed these thoughts aside, they lingered like echoes in the corridors of his mind. Each question he asked, even silently, chipped away at the rigid belief system he had inherited. And so, beneath the armor of a Sith apprentice, a quiet conscience began to glow. Fragile, but growing brighter with every passing day. 19. The cost of power. As Galen's strength grew, he began to feel the toll it took on his body and spirit. His use of the Force was intense, raw, and untempered, like lightning channeled through fragile wires. After training sessions, his hands often trembled, and the edges of his vision shimmered with exhaustion. Vader never acknowledged these signs of strain. To him, power was meant to be pushed until it broke. And so, Galen learned to hide his fatigue, breathing through it quietly, letting the ache settle deep within. He believed that pain was simply part of the path he walked, proof that he was becoming the weapon Vader intended. Yet in rare moments of stillness, he wondered whether true strength required so much suffering, or whether there was another way the Force could flow. 20. a destiny not yet seen. Though Galen's training seemed rigid and defined, the Force moved around him with currents that hinted at possibilities far beyond Vader's design. Sometimes, during meditation, he felt brief flashes, not visions, but gentle impressions of futures unformed. A sense of standing beside unexpected allies, of choosing compassion over fury, of stepping away from the darkness entirely. He dismissed these feelings at first, thinking them trickery or weakness. Yet the impressions persisted, soft and persistent, like the murmur of a distant tide. It was as though the Force itself recognized the conflict brewing within him and offered quiet glimpses of another path. These whispers did not steer him outright, but they planted seeds. Seeds that would one day grow into choices neither Vader nor the Emperor could foresee. 21. Hunting the Last Jedi. Galen's early missions were shrouded in secrecy, each one designed to eliminate Jedi survivors scattered throughout the galaxy. He approached these hunts with precision and silence, drifting from system to system aboard, the rogue shadow, like a ghost wrapped in metal and shadow. Though Vader had taught him to see the Jedi as enemies, Galen often sensed something different in them, a calm presence, a warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold fire of the Sith. These encounters left him unsettled. The Jedi did not radiate malice. Instead, they felt like echoes of the dreams he once had, filled with light and possibility. Yet he carried out his missions with the efficiency expected of him. And with each fallen Jedi, the conflict within his heart grew a little louder, a little harder to ignore. 22. Master of the Unseen. To accomplish the mission set before him, Galen learned to move like a whisper through the galaxy. He became a master of infiltration, slipping into Imperial outposts, hidden temples, and crumbling fortresses with the silence of drifting stardust. The rogue shadow carried him from world to world, its stealth systems wrapping him in invisibility. Galen listened to the Force as others might listen to wind, letting it guide his footsteps, his breath, his awareness. He learned to mask his presence so completely that even seasoned Force users felt only a passing chill, as though a shadow had momentarily brushed their thoughts. These silent journeys carved a strange peace within him, a calm that existed only in motion. And in that quiet mastery, the seeds of independence began to sprout. 23. The duel with Yoda. When Galen first faced Ram Yoda, the blind Jedi general, the confrontation was unlike any trial Vader had prepared him for. Yoda fought with purpose, not anger, with conviction, not desperation. His blade moved with a controlled fire, guided by senses Galen did not understand. In their clash, sparks danced across the air like fleeting stars, and Galen felt something unfamiliar, a resistance that was not hatred, but hope. Yoda spoke to him during the battle, questioning his path, his allegiance, his identity. These words struck deeper than any blow. When Galen finally prevailed, it was with skill, yet his victory felt strangely hollow. The general's presence lingered in his mind afterward, a gentle echo asking questions he had never dared to ask himself. And from that moment, the darkness began to shift. 24. The hidden kindness of a warrior. Though trained as an assassin, Galen sometimes revealed a quiet mercy that contrasted sharply with his upbringing. There were moments, small, fleeting, when he spared those who posed no threat, or softened his blows when victory was already certain. He did not understand this instinct. It rose unbidden, like light slipping through cracks in a sealed chamber. These acts of compassion troubled him, for they contradicted everything Vader had taught. yet they also soothed a part of him long starved for warmth. In helping the powerless, he glimpsed something tender within himself, a vulnerability that felt more powerful than rage. And though he tried to bury these moments, they lived on in his thoughts, glowing softly like embers in the night. From them, a new path quietly began to take shape. 25. Whispers of Rebellion. As Galen continued his missions across the galaxy, he began to encounter small pockets of resistance, worlds where ordinary people defied imperial rule with little more than courage and determination. These encounters unsettled him in a quiet, unexpected way. The rebellion was not yet an organized force, but its spirit drifted like faint embers carried on the wind. Galen felt their presence in the Force, warm and persistent, glowing in stark contrast to the cold directives he followed. Though he did not fully understand their cause, something within him resonated with their hope, their refusal to bow. These whispers lingered in his thoughts long after each mission, calling to him like distant stars glimpsed through the darkness. And one day, those embers would ignite a storm. 26. Shattered Loyalty. The moment that would forever change Galen's path came without warning, as betrayals in Sith history often do. During what he believed to be a triumph, another mission completed, another step toward Vader's grand plan, he was abruptly discarded. Palpatine had discovered him, and Vader, desperate to maintain his own survival, struck Galen down. The blow was swift and merciless, an act meant to prove his loyalty to the Emperor. As darkness closed around him, Galen felt a profound fracture within himself. He had believed in Vader's vision, believed he held a place in the future they would craft together. But in that single moment, the illusion shattered like glass. His trust, his identity, his purpose all fell away, leaving only a quiet, aching void. And in that silence, the first true seed of change began to take root. 27. Saved from the void. Yet fate, or perhaps the Force, was not finished with Galen. Against all logic, Vader recovered his broken body from the brink of death, piecing him back together with cybernetic precision. Galen awoke not to gratitude, but to confusion. Why had Vader saved him, only to strike him down? The answer was as cold as the machines that revived him. He was useful again. Vader needed a pawn to manipulate the Emperor, a tool to help forge a rebellion that could later be crushed. Galen listened to these instructions with numb resignation, but something had changed inside him. The fracture from his betrayal had widened, letting light seep in. And as he took his first breath in this new form, the void he had fallen into whispered that his destiny was no longer bound to darkness alone. 28. Reborn with purpose. When Galen emerged from the procedures that rebuilt him, he felt strangely detached from the person he had once been. His body was stronger, faster, refined by technology and the unforgiving design of the Empire. Yet his spirit felt fragile, as though it had cracked and reformed along different lines. Vader told him he'd been reborn with a new mission, but the words rang, hollow, echoing through a chamber of doubts. Galen sensed that his survival carried meaning beyond the Sith's manipulation, a quiet nudge from the Force guiding him into uncharted territory. As he stood again on solid ground, the galaxy felt different, wider somehow, filled with possibilities he had never allowed himself to imagine. And in the soft space between breaths, a new path shimmered into being. 29. A secret rebellion. Vader's plan was simple in design, yet treacherous in intent. Galen would gather the Empire's enemies, uniting them into a hidden alliance meant to serve as bait. To Galen, the mission felt different from the hunts he had known. Instead of extinguishing hope, he was now meant to nurture it, though only so it could later be crushed. As he moved from system to system, meeting senators, fugitives, and warriors willing to defy imperial rule, something inside him stirred. Their conviction resonated with the faint dreams he had carried since childhood. Dreams of a galaxy where fear did not dictate one's destiny. The more he listened to them, the harder it became to see them as pawns. And slowly, quietly, their cause began to feel like a reflection of something buried deep within his own heart. 30. Meeting Bail Organa. When Galen first stood before Senator Bail Organa, he felt a presence unlike any he had encountered. A calm strength wrapped in dignity, steady and unwavering like a mountain beneath starlight. Bail did not fear him. Instead, he looked into Galen as though searching for the person hidden beneath the armor of the dark side. Their conversations were quiet, deliberate, filled with the senator's measured hope and Galen's reluctant curiosity. For the first time, Galen encountered a leader who fought not for power, but for compassion and justice. This meeting left a deep impression on him, as though the senator had held up a mirror and shown him a gentler version of who he could be. And from that gentle reflection, the path toward rebellion began to brighten. 31. Juno Eclipse's arrival. When Galen first met Juno Eclipse, the rogue Shadow's brilliant and disciplined pilot, he sensed a presence unlike any he had known. She carried herself with quiet confidence, a calm steadiness beneath the sharpness of her imperial training. Juno did not flinch at his power, nor did she bow with fear. Instead, her eyes held curiosity and something softer he could not name. Their conversations began guarded, filled with the polite distance of soldiers serving a shared command. Yet in the silence between stars, Galen found himself drawn to her warmth, to the gentle way she softened the cold corridors of their ship. Her presence brought a serenity he had never experienced, like a star he had long stared at, but only now began to understand. And from that calm light, the first threads of connection began to form. 32. Echoes of trust. Trust was foreign to Galen, a concept that seemed as distant as peaceful worlds he had never touched. But as missions unfolded and dangers mounted, he began to rely on Juno in ways that surprised him. She guided the rogue Shadow through storms of fire, through debris fields and hostile sectors, her hands steady on the controls, her voice calm in the chaos. In those moments, Galen felt a quiet reassurance settle over him, something beyond strategy or survival. Juno treated him not as a weapon, nor a shadow, but as a person, someone worthy of belief. That trust echoed within him long after each mission ended, stirring emotions he had no words for. And through that gentle trust, a new part of him began to awaken, fragile and luminous. 33. Aboard the Rogue Shadow. The Rogue Shadow became more than a vessel. It became Galen's drifting sanctuary between the storms of his life. Its dim corridors and hushed hum of engines gave him a rare sense of peace. In the quiet glow of control panels and the soft pulse of hyperdrive systems, he found moments to breathe, to think, to simply exist without command or conflict. Here, he watched stars streak past like silver rain, each one a reminder of how vast the galaxy truly was. Sometimes, Juno would sit nearby, saying little, offering companionship without expectation. In this metallic cocoon drifting through hyperspace, Galen began to feel something he had never known, the comfort of belonging. And from that comfort, the next step of his destiny quietly unfolded. 34. The Weight of Two Worlds. As Galen's journey carried him deeper into the galaxy, he found himself living between two identities: Vader's hidden apprentice, forged in shadows, and an emerging ally to those who dreamed of freedom. This duality weighed on him like twin moons pulling at the tides of his spirit. On one side stood the teachings of fear and power, shaping him into the perfect weapon. On the other stood newfound compassion, trust, and the quiet warmth he felt among budding rebels. Every decision became a balancing act, each mission a reminder of the fracture inside him. Yet with each step, the light began to pull a little stronger, as though the Force gently tugged at the threads of his destiny. And in that silent tension, his true path began to glow. 35. The moment he chose. The turning point came softly, less a dramatic revelation, and more a quiet realization that echoed through Galen's heart. He had listened to the voices of the oppressed, seen the courage of those who fought without the Force, and felt the fragile yet radiant hope of people who believed the galaxy could be better. And when he looked inward, he saw that he no longer fought for Vader, nor for the false promise of Sith power. He fought for something else, something his childhood self had once dreamed of without understanding. It wasn't rebellion alone, nor justice, nor revenge. It was the simple yearning to choose his own destiny. And in that still moment, between breaths and the faint hum of hyperdrive engines, Galen understood that he could no longer remain in the shadows. His heart had already stepped into the light. 36. A storm in human form. As Galen's powers matured, they became a storm, vast, intense, and breathtaking in their scope. The Force surged through him with a raw ferocity rarely seen in any era, as though he were a conduit for something ancient and unrestrained. Lightning answered his anger. Telekinetic waves rippled outward with the strength of hurricanes, and his presence in battle shifted the air itself. Yet despite this overwhelming power, there was a gentleness hidden beneath it, a yearning for control, for balance, for a purpose beyond destruction. His abilities were neither purely dark nor purely light. They resonated with the turmoil inside him, shaping him into a being caught between destinies. And in that swirling storm, the galaxy began to sense the arrival of a force capable of changing everything. 37. Mastery of lightning. From an early age, Galen showed an uncanny affinity for Force lightning, an ability most apprentices struggled to control. For him, it flowed with startling ease, crackling through the air like threads of living starlight. When he summoned it, the chambers around him glowed in pulses of violet and blue, illuminating the sharp lines of his concentration. But despite its destructive beauty, Galen never felt entirely comfortable wielding it. The power burned hot, whispering promises of dominance he did not fully trust. After each burst, a faint ache lingered in his chest, reminding him that the Force was not meant to be torn open so violently. And in the quiet moments afterward, he wondered if such energy was truly meant to be his, or if it was merely another shadow left by the darkness that raised him. 38. The art of telekinesis. If lightning was a storm, then Galen's telekinesis was a tide, steady, powerful, and infinitely adaptable. He learned to lift objects with the gentleness of a falling feather or the force of a crashing starship. In battle, he could sweep aside droids and troopers with effortless grace, his movements flowing like water through metal and fire. But in the stillness of the rogue shadow, he practiced quieter forms of the art, guiding small tools through the air, aligning components of his lightsaber, or or simply letting objects drift in slow circles while he breathed in perfect rhythm. These delicate exercises soothed him, reminding him that the Force was more than a weapon. It could be a companion, a teacher, even a source of peace. And in those moments of tranquil motion, a gentler future seemed possible. 39. Pulling Star Destroyers. Among the legends surrounding Galen, few are as awe-striking as the tale of him bringing down a Star Destroyer. Whether myth or memory shaped by emotion, the moment symbolizes the staggering depth of his connection to the Force. Standing on the fractured platform of Raxus Prime, he reached out with every fiber of his being, feeling the massive vessel above him, like a living weight in the energy around him. The strain was immense. His muscles quivered, his breath shook, and the Force roared through him like a tempest. Yet beneath that fury was a fierce clarity, a focus sharpened by purpose and pain. Whatever the literal truth, the image endures, a lone figure beneath a falling giant, proving that even the impossible can bend when the Force is willing to answer. And from that legend, the galaxy whispered of power unchained. 40. The Fury State. Deep within Galen's training lay a technique both potent and perilous, an unleashed state of pure instinct and emotion that Vader called Fury. When Galen entered this heightened place, the world around him seemed to slow, as though the Force itself wrapped him in a storm of sharpened perception. His strikes grew faster, his senses clearer, his power swelling like a rising tide. Yet this strength came with a cost. Each moment in fury pulled him closer to the raw edge of his own darkness, urging him to surrender control in exchange for overwhelming might. Afterward, he often felt hollow, as though part of him had burned away in the flames. Even so, the memory of that terrifying clarity lingered, a reminder of the dangerous line he walked between power and peace. 41. A saber like a comet. Galen's fighting style was unmistakable, fluid, explosive, and filled with motion that flowed like the arc of a comet across night skies. His lightsaber became an extension of his heartbeat, glowing crimson as he spun, leapt, and struck with a grace that felt almost poetic despite its ferocity. Each movement blended precision and raw emotion, shaped by years of isolation and relentless training. When he fought, it was as though he danced with the Force, channeling its currents through every step and turn. Observers spoke of the way his blade illuminated the darkness around him, casting flickering shadows that moved in rhythm with his will. In these moments, he felt strangely free, untethered from fear, from expectation, from the weight of his past, and the hum of his saber carried him forward toward a future still unformed. 42. Dual-wielded grace. Over time, Galen discovered a unique balance in wielding two lightsabers, a style that mirrored the dual nature of his own heart. With one blade, he carried the precision of discipline, with the other, the wild momentum of raw instinct. Together, they formed a harmony of motion that few warriors could match. In battle, he shifted seamlessly between offense and defense, the twin sabers weaving patterns of red light that dazzled foes and reshaped the rhythm of combat. Yet beyond their practical power, the blades felt symbolic. They reflected his constant struggle between darkness and light, between obedience and freedom. Holding them, he felt the truth of who he was becoming, a being shaped by conflict, yet capable of extraordinary balance. And with each duel, that balance grew clearer, shining softly through the storm inside him. 43. Precision through rage. Though Galen wielded immense power, His strength did not come from blind fury. Instead, it drew from a focused, sharpened rage, a flame he learned to control rather than be consumed by. In battle, he channeled this emotion into precise movements, each strike guided by purpose rather than chaos. The Force flowed differently through him in these moments, tightening around his awareness like a guiding hand, heightening every sensation. Yet afterward, when the adrenaline faded, he often felt the echo of that intensity lingering like distant thunder. Rage had given him clarity, but it had also carved small shadows in his spirit. And slowly, he began to wonder whether true mastery came not from controlling anger, but from understanding the quieter emotions he had never been taught to trust. 44. Channeling the unrestrained Force. Galen's connection to the Force was unlike anything Vader had anticipated. When he opened himself fully, the energy poured through him with astonishing freedom. Wild, brilliant, and untamable. It was as though he tapped into currents older than the teachings of Jedi or Sith, reaching into a well of raw potential that resonated with his very essence. During these rare moments, objects trembled around him, lights flickered, and the air itself seemed to vibrate in response. Yet this unrestrained power carried danger. Galen sometimes feared losing himself within it, becoming little more than a vessel for something far greater. To calm this fear, he practiced breathing exercises, grounding techniques, small rituals of stillness that allowed him to remain anchored. And in those moments of control, the Force felt less like a storm and more like a companion. 45. Adaptable warrior. Galen's strength did not lie solely in raw power. It blossomed in his adaptability. Raised in secrecy, he had learned to face unfamiliar enemies, varied terrains, and unpredictable situations with fluid precision. Whether battling across unstable platforms, dense jungles, or metallic corridors echoing with blaster fire, he shifted his tactics effortlessly. His instincts were finely tuned, shaped by a life spent surviving both Vader's tests and the chaotic missions that followed. What truly set him apart was his ability to blend disciplines: Jedi grace, Sith aggression, and his own intuitive creativity. This adaptability allowed him to evolve beyond the constraints of traditional training. And with each battle, he grew less like an apprentice shaped by another's will, and more like a warrior discovering his own identity within the vast tapestry of the Force. 46. Resisting mind tricks. Over time, Galen developed a mental resilience that surprised even those who studied the Force their entire lives. His mind, shaped by years of secrecy and emotional suppression, became a fortress of quiet determination. Jedi mind tricks, illusions, and subtle manipulations found little purchase within him, as though his thoughts flowed beneath a protective current. This resistance did not come from arrogance, but from a lifetime of guarding his inner world from fear, vulnerability, and disappointment. Vader had taught him to shield himself from intrusion, but the true strength came from Galen's own perseverance. He had learned to listen inwardly, to trust his own instincts more than anyone's commands. And in that inner stillness, he discovered a sanctuary untouched by darkness or deception, a sanctuary that would one day guide his steps toward freedom. 47. The Force as a language. For Galen, the Force was not merely energy or power. It was a language, one spoken through sensation, movement, and emotion. He learned to interpret its subtle shifts, the way others read constellations in the night sky. A flicker of tension meant danger. A warm pulse indicated safety. A gentle ripple told him when someone nearby carried sorrow or hope. This sensitivity made him a formidable warrior, but it also awakened a deeper empathy he had long suppressed. Through the Force, he felt the galaxy breathe, its pain, its longing, its quiet endurance. These impressions shaped him more than any formal teaching. They whispered truths about connection and balance, truths the Sith had never intended for him to hear. And with each new understanding, Galen drifted further from the path of darkness and closer to the person the Force hoped he might become. 48. The cost of overpowering. Despite his prodigious abilities, every surge of overwhelming strength carried a hidden price. When Galen unleashed too much at once, a wave of telekinesis, a burst of lightning, a shattering scream of the Force, the aftermath left him shaken. His muscles quivered, his breath grew shallow, and his heart raced like a ship emerging too quickly from hyperspace. These aftershocks reminded him that power was not endless, and that even the strongest conduits could fracture under strain. More importantly, they revealed the emotional cost. Each burst of fury left him feeling hollow, as though he had emptied not just his strength, but a piece of himself. In these quiet moments of recovery, he began to realize that true mastery did not lie in force of will alone, but in balance, restraint, and the gentler currents of the Force that carried him back to stillness. 49. Moments of gentle power. Though much of Galen's life was forged in conflict, there were rare moments when his power manifested not in destruction, but in quiet protection. In the stillness of the rogue shadow, he sometimes practiced lifting small objects with deliberate softness, letting them drift like feathers caught in a slow, spiraling breeze. Once, on a mission gone awry, he used the Force not to strike, but to shield a frightened civilian from falling debris. A simple act, yet one that stirred a warmth he did not fully understand. These gentle uses of the Force soothed him, reminding him that power need not always roar like lightning. Sometimes it could shine like candlelight, guiding rather than consuming. And in those tender moments, he glimpsed the heart he had long believed lost. 50. The light. Within the storm, Galen often saw himself as a creature of shadow, shaped by Vader and bound to darkness. Yet beneath that storm, a quiet light pulsed, subtle, persistent, and luminous in ways he never expected. It revealed itself in fleeting moments, a hesitation before a killing blow, a choice to spare instead of destroy, the ache he felt when witnessing suffering. These sparks of compassion were not weaknesses. They were reminders of a soul untouched by the Sith's teachings. They hummed within him like a distant melody, familiar yet half forgotten. Over time, he began to sense that this inner light was not something he had gained, but something he had always carried, buried under years of fear and expectation. And with each mission, it grew brighter, gently shaping the man he was becoming. 51. Visions of future paths. During meditation, a practice he once considered tedious, Galen sometimes slipped into soft, drifting visions. They were not clear prophecies, but impressions, like watercolor images forming on the edge of awareness. He saw himself standing beside allies he had not yet met. He felt the warmth of a cause greater than vengeance. He glimpsed battles fought not for Vader, but for something more fragile and more true. These visions left him contemplative, as though the Force were offering a hand toward futures still unformed. He did not know which path was meant for him, nor whether he was strong enough to choose it. But each glimpse stirred a gentle hope inside him, a hope that life could be shaped by choice rather than chains. And somewhere in that peaceful uncertainty, his destiny slowly began to unfold. 52. The sound of his power. When Galen stepped into battle, the air around him changed. Even before his lightsaber ignited, there was a subtle shift, a low hum, like the quiet rumble of distant thunder rolling across a dark horizon. The Force gathered around him in ripples, vibrating through metal walkways and drifting dust, creating an atmosphere thick with potential. Those who stood nearby felt it in their bones, a trembling awareness that something immense was stirring. Yet when Galen paused, when he breathed slowly and let the tension fall away, the world softened again. His power did not only roar, it could whisper too. And in those gentle moments, the hum of the Force around him sounded almost like a lullaby, a reminder that even storms have quiet centers where peace resides. 53. A body trained for war. Galen's physical form was shaped through years of harsh trials, running through obstacle courses until his legs burned, sparring against droids that struck with merciless precision, and enduring grueling endurance sessions designed to push his limits far beyond normal boundaries. His reflexes sharpened through countless hours of repetition, each movement carved into muscle memory by necessity. Yet beneath the hardened exterior was a body that still remembered softness, still carried the echoes of a childhood stolen too soon. At night, long after training ended, he felt the ache of overexertion settle into his bones like creeping frost. But he learned to breathe through the discomfort, grounding himself in the slow rise and fall of his chest. And in those quiet moments, he understood that strength was not only measured by what one endured, but by what one chose to protect. 54. Saber crystals and choices. The crystals that powered Galen's lightsabers became symbols of the inner journey he never fully voiced. Their colors shifted over time, reflecting the turbulence within him, from the deep reds of his Sith upbringing to hues reshaped by personal revelation. When he attuned to these crystals, he felt their memories, ancient whispers of worlds long forgotten, echoes of Jedi who once carried them, the soft tremor of the Force flowing through their cores. Holding them, he sensed a truth the Sith never taught, that a lightsaber was not just a weapon, but a reflection of the wielder's heart. And as his beliefs began to change, the crystals responded gently, their glow reminding him that identity could evolve, just as light bends and refracts through the facets of a gem. And with each new hue, another step on his path unfolded. 55. The echo his presence left. Wherever Galen walked, the Force stirred behind him, leaving subtle echoes in his wake. After intense battles, the air felt charged, as though lightning had brushed the surface of reality itself. Even in peaceful moments, his presence left impressions, a quiet warmth, a ripple that lingered long after he stepped away. Some described it as a whisper, others as a tremor, but to those sensitive to the Force, it felt like the fading note of a powerful chord. Galen never noticed these echoes himself, for he had spent his life moving quickly, chasing missions and expectations. But the galaxy felt them. In the silence after he departed a world or a ship, something remained, gentle yet unmistakable, like the last shimmer of starlight before dawn. 56. Vader, Master and Captor. The relationship between Galen and Darth Vader was a paradox, part mentorship, part imprisonment, and part unspoken longing for connection neither could name. Vader loomed over Galen's life like a silent fortress, shaping every lesson with severity and purpose. To Galen, he was both the only constant and the greatest shadow. He feared disappointing him, yet craved even a hint of approval. Vader's presence filled the air with cold authority, his voice resonating through Galen's memories like a distant echo that never faded. Though Galen followed him with unwavering loyalty, a quiet ache pulsed beneath that devotion. The ache of a child who had never truly been allowed to be one. And in that tension, their bond became a storm neither could fully escape. 57. The untold cruelty. Vader's cruelty did not always come through violence. Often, it arrived in subtler, more piercing forms. He withheld praise, withheld comfort, withheld every gentle reassurance that might have given Galen a sense of self beyond being a weapon. His lessons were designed to wound as much as to strengthen, shaping a dependence rooted in fear. At times, he engineered situations meant to break Galen's spirit. Missions where failure was inevitable. Confrontations where the emotional toll outweighed the physical danger. These tactics left invisible scars, deeper than any burn or bruise. And though Galen learned to endure them with stoic silence, the pain formed shadows within him that would one day clash against the emerging light in his heart. From that suffering, a new resilience quietly began to rise. 58. The faintest affection. Despite the harshness of their bond, there were rare moments, fleeting, almost imperceptible, when Galen sensed something in Vader that felt like a distant echo of care. It was never spoken, never shown through gentle words or softened gestures, for the Sith did not allow such tenderness. But sometimes, in the split second after a dangerous mission, or during a pause in brutal training, Vader's silence held a different kind of weight. A slower breath, a subtle shift in posture, a stillness that suggested he saw more in Galen than a mere tool. These small shadows of affection confused the apprentice, stirring hopes he tried to ignore. They were fragile impressions, fragile enough to fade quickly, but real enough to linger in the quiet corners of his heart. 59. Yoda as a father figure. General Rom. Yoda entered Galen's life as an enemy, yet became something far more profound. After their first clash, Yoda sensed the conflict within the young warrior, the yearning for identity, for purpose, for belonging. When fate brought them together again, Yoda did not speak with the cold authority Galen was accustomed to. Instead, he offered guidance, honesty, and a kind of gruff warmth that reminded Galen of the father he barely remembered. Yoda saw the person behind the power, the humanity beneath the storm. He called Galen by his true name, spoke to him as though he deserved a future not bound to Sith chains. In these moments, a gentle longing filled Galen's heart, a longing for connection, for mentorship rooted in care rather than fear. And Yoda's presence helped the light within him grow. 60. Juno. Eclipse, a lighthouse. To Galen, Juno became something rare and precious. A steady glow in the darkness, a lighthouse guiding him toward a life he had never imagined. Her courage was quiet, not born of the Force, but of conviction and compassion. She looked at him not as a weapon or a secret, but as a man capable of choosing his own path. In her presence, the storm inside him softened. He found comfort in her voice, reassurance in her, steadiness, and hope in the subtle kindness she extended without hesitation. Juno never demanded he change. She simply believed he could. And that belief, warm as the first sunrise after a long night, illuminated possibilities Galen had once thought unreachable. With her by his side, the galaxy felt a little less dark. 61. A growing heart. As Galen traveled with Juno and crossed paths with Yoda, something within him began to open. Slowly, tentatively, like a flower blooming under uncertain sunlight. He found himself noticing small things he had once overlooked. The quiet bravery of those who fought without the Force. The tenderness in Juno's gaze when she believed he wasn't looking. The warmth in Koda's gruff reassurances. These moments wove themselves into the fabric of his spirit, softening edges carved by years of isolation and fear. Galen realized he was beginning to care, truly care, about others, not as pieces on a board, but as living beings with dreams and pain of their own. And as that fragile heart expanded, the dark armor around his emotions began to loosen, thread by thread, revealing the person he might one day become. 62. Friendships. Within the rebellion. Walking among the early sparks of the Rebel Alliance, Galen felt something he had never known. Camaraderie. These were people who fought not for power, but for freedom. People who trusted one another, laughed together, mourned together. In their presence, Galen discovered the warmth of shared purpose, the quiet strength of standing beside others instead of above them. He listened to their stories around dimly lit hollow tables, watched their determination as they prepared ships and coded transmissions, and felt the fragile hope that united them all. They treated him as an ally, even when they did not know his past. Their acceptance soothed old wounds he had long tried to ignore. And in the hush between missions, Galen felt the first true sense of belonging he had experienced since childhood. 63. Learning compassion. Compassion came to Galen not as a sudden revelation, but as a gentle tide washing over him with every life he touched. He learned it in the frightened eyes of civilians he protected, in the gratitude of rebels who saw him as more than a weapon, in Juno's steady belief that he was capable of choosing differently. Each act of kindness he offered felt both unfamiliar and deeply natural, like remembering a song he'd once known. Through compassion, he began to understand the vast difference between fear and respect, between obedience and loyalty, between force and true strength. These lessons softened the shadows within him, illuminating corners of his spirit long left in darkness. And with each compassionate choice, the man once shaped as a Sith apprentice stepped further into the light he never knew he carried. 64. Wrestling with identity. Galen's journey soon became as much an inner battle as the missions he undertook. Though he had once accepted Starkiller as a name carved for him by darkness, he now struggled to reconcile that identity with the person he was becoming. Memories of Vader's teachings clashed with the warmth he found among rebels, the fear he once felt challenged by newfound courage. He often sat alone aboard the Rogue Shadow, watching hyperspace twist into blue currents, wondering who he truly was beneath the layers of secrecy and scars. Was he the weapon Vader shaped? The ally Koda believed in? The man Juno saw? These questions swirled quietly in his heart, and with each moment of reflection, the truth flickered like a small star beginning to shine through storm clouds, delicate yet undeniably bright. 65. The meaning of his name. Starkiller, the title Vader gave him, was meant to inspire dread, a symbol of destruction, a blade forged to extinguish the last sparks of Jedi light. Galen wore it for years without question, believing it defined his fate. But as he grew closer to the rebellion, and as compassion stirred softly within him, the name began to feel heavy, ill-fitting, like armor that no longer protected, but restrained. He remembered the name his father once spoke, Galen, simple, human, filled with a warmth he barely recalled. Slowly, he realized he preferred that name, for it reflected not the power he wielded, but the person he was choosing to become. And as he whispered it to himself in quiet moments, the Force seemed to hum in gentle agreement, as though welcoming him home to his true self. 66. Facing his cloned shadow. Even after finding glimpses of peace, Galen's path led him to confront a haunting reflection of his own identity. A clone created to replace him, perfect in skill and stripped of hesitation. Facing this mirror felt like standing before a distorted echo of his past. The obedience he once offered, the anger he once carried, the emptiness he once believed was strength. The clone moved with precision he recognized intimately, its strikes echoing lessons Vader had carved into his bones. Yet Galen sensed something hollow within it, a void where compassion had never taken root. In their clash, he saw clearly the man he might have remained, if not for Juno, for Kota, for the quiet awakening of his own heart. And as their blades crossed, he realized that identity was not merely inherited, it was chosen. And in that choice, he stepped further into the light. 67. The pain of disposability. One of the deepest wounds Galen carried was the realization that, to Vader, he was never irreplaceable. That truth revealed itself slowly, through quiet omissions, through the coldness in Vader's voice, through missions designed to test his very survival. But it struck hardest when Galen learned of the clone created to stand where he once had. In that moment, he felt the silent ache of disposability settle over him like a heavy shroud. The Sith had taught him to suppress emotion, yet this pain ran deeper than any he had known. It whispered that his loyalty meant nothing, that his devotion was a one-sided bond. And though the hurt lingered in the quiet chambers of his heart, it also sparked a fierce desire for self-worth, a yearning to live for something beyond being a tool of the dark. 68. The moment of true sacrifice. Galen's journey reached a turning point when he stood before the Emperor, surrounded by crackling lightning and the grim weight of destiny. He could feel the terror of those he sought to protect: Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and the fragile beginnings of the rebellion. In that breathless moment, he sensed Vader's conflicted presence behind him, the shadow of a man torn between command and the faintest glimmer of humanity. Galen knew he had a choice: cling to survival, or offer himself so that hope might endure. With a calm exhale, he stepped forward, letting the Force surge through him, not as a weapon, but as a shield. His sacrifice was brilliant and brief, burning like a star pushed to its final burst. And in giving everything, he lit the path for countless others to rise. 69. A new kind of strength. After his sacrifice, the memory of Galen did not fade. Instead, it stirred within those who had witnessed his courage, echoing through the rebellion like a soft, persistent heartbeat. His strength was no longer measured by the battles he won or the power he wielded, but by the compassion he embraced in the final moments of his life. He had chosen hope over fear, selflessness over survival, and in doing so, he discovered a strength that neither Sith nor Jedi had taught him. It was the power of choice, of identity, of love. This new strength became his legacy, a quiet reminder that even those born in darkness could ignite a future filled with light. And in the wake of his sacrifice, the galaxy took its first gentle steps toward freedom. 70. His legacy in Juno's eyes. For Juno Eclipse, Galen's legacy lived not in legends or battlefield victories, but in the quiet moments she carried within her heart. She remembered the way he stood at the viewport, watching stars drift by with a longing he never fully expressed. She remembered the gentleness behind his power, the hesitant smiles, the bravery that blossomed from uncertainty. In her eyes, he was not Starkiller, not the weapon Vader sculpted, but Galen, a man who chose compassion in a galaxy ruled by fear. After his sacrifice, she felt his absence like the fading warmth of a hand once held. Yet she also felt his presence in every spark of hope the rebellion ignited. In loving him, she found the strength to keep moving forward, guided by a light he helped her remember. 71. The Duel with Shock. Among the echoes of Galen's journey, few moments were as surreal and haunting as his confrontation with the Jedi Master Shaak Ti on the vibrant world of Felucia. The jungle pulsed with strange life, glowing spores, whispering vines, and the rhythmic heartbeat of a planet steeped in the Force. Shaak Ti met him not with anger, but with sorrowful understanding, sensing the conflict buried beneath his aggression. Their duel unfolded like a dance between storm and serenity, each strike illuminating the shadows within Galen's soul. She spoke to him, even as their blades clashed, urging him to see the truth of who he was. And though the battle ended in her defeat, her final words lingered like a soft echo, a warning, a prophecy, and a reminder that darkness was not the only destiny waiting for him. 72. Visions on Felucia. Felucia was unlike any world Galen had seen, alive in ways that unsettled him, filled with colors and energies that shimmered like dreams. As he wandered its bioluminescent forests, he felt the Force breathing through every leaf and creature, revealing truths he had never sensed so clearly. The planet showed him visions, brief and fragile, woven from his fears and hopes. He saw a version of himself consumed by darkness, and another stepping into the light. He glimpsed Juno's face, illuminated by distant stars, and felt the ache of choices yet to be made. These visions unsettled him, but also soothed him, like whispers from the Force reminding him that his path was not fixed. And beneath Felucia's glowing canopy, he sensed that change was already unfolding within him. Quiet, steady, and inevitable. 73. The battle against the Bull Rancor. On Felucia, Galen faced a creature born from the planet's wild heartbeat, the towering Bull Rancor, a living mountain of muscle and fury. Its roar shook the air, sending ripples of energy through the Force. Yet beneath its rage, Galen sensed a primal fear, stirred by the imbalance the Empire had brought to the world. Their battle was fierce, unfolding beneath glowing fungi and drifting spores that illuminated every movement like lanterns in the dark. Galen leapt, dodged, and struck with graceful precision, the Force guiding his steps through the chaos. When he finally subdued the beast, he felt no triumph, only a quiet sorrow for a creature manipulated into violence. In that moment, he understood that even monsters could be victims. And with that understanding, a deeper compassion took root. 74. Returning to Vader. After Felucia and the early embers of rebellion, Galen returned to Vader, carrying a weight he could not name. The halls of the Executor felt colder than before, the shadows sharper, the silence more oppressive. Vader greeted him with the same impassive authority, yet Galen sensed something different, a tension beneath the mask, as though Vader felt the shift in his apprentice's spirit. Galen delivered his report, each word echoing with unspoken truths he dared not reveal. Standing before the man who had shaped his entire life, he felt both familiarity and distance, as though the bond they once shared had become a fragile relic. Returning to Vader felt like stepping back into a cage he no longer fit. And in that realization, Galen knew his path was beginning to diverge from the darkness behind him. 75. The final betrayal. The moment that severed the last threads of Galen's loyalty arrived suddenly, like a blade slipping silently through fabric. As the rebellion gathered, galvanized by his efforts, Vader turned against him once more, striking not from necessity, but from a pattern of cruelty repeating itself. Galen saw it clearly this time. The Sith were shaped by betrayal, bound to it, unable to exist without breaking those who served them. The blow was devastating, not for its physical force, but for the emotional clarity it brought. In that instant, Galen understood that Vader had never intended to share power, never intended to free himself from the Emperor, never intended to let Galen become anything more than a stepping stone. The betrayal severed the chains he had carried since childhood, and in the quiet fallout, he chose a different destiny. 76. The rise of the Rebel Alliance. In the wake of betrayal, Galen found himself standing at the threshold of something far greater than any secret mission Vader had devised. Senators who once hid in fear now gathered around a single fragile spark of unity, a spark he had helped ignite. In dimly lit chambers and shadowed hangars, the first true whispers of a rebel alliance began to form. Galen watched as leaders debated, as pilots volunteered, as hope flickered tentatively in tired eyes. It was a hope built not on power, but on courage, trust, and shared resolve. For the first time, Galen felt he was part of something that did not demand his strength, but welcomed his heart. And as the alliance rose from scattered embers, he sensed the force stirring with quiet approval. 77. Infiltrating the Death Star. Galen's path eventually led him into the immense steel labyrinth of the Death Star, a structure so vast and hollow it seemed to swallow sound itself. Inside, cold corridors stretched endlessly, illuminated by pale strips of light that cast long shadows across polished floors. As he moved through the station, his footsteps whispered like distant echoes, his presence masked by years of honing silence. Guards passed him, without sensing the storm stirring just beyond their perception. Galen felt the hum of the reactor beneath his feet, the weight of Imperial machinery pressing down like a slumbering giant. Yet in that suffocating stillness, he carried a fragile calm, a knowledge that he walked not for vengeance, but for the lives depending on him. Each step felt like a vow, each breath a quiet promise to protect. 78. The Last Stand. When Galen finally faced Emperor Palpatine, the air around them crackled with tension so sharp it felt like the universe was holding its breath. Lightning arced from the Emperor's fingers, bathing the chamber in blinding flashes of violet and white. Galen braced himself, the force swirling around him in a storm of pain and resolve. Behind him stood the leaders of the nascent rebellion, frightened yet unbroken, watching with eyes full of hope and fear intertwined. Galen understood in that single charged instant that his life was a barrier between them and annihilation. As lightning surged toward him, he drew upon everything he had ever learned, not from Vader's cruelty, but from the compassion that had slowly reshaped his heart. His final stand was not an act of rage, but of love, and that love illuminated the darkness. 79. An ending of light. As the confrontation with the Emperor reached its breaking point, Galen felt the force surge through him with a clarity he had never known. The pain of the lightning faded into the background, replaced by a profound stillness that wrapped around his spirit like a warm embrace. In that stillness, he understood that his life, shaped in darkness, scarred by betrayal, had found its meaning in this single, luminous act. The light he released was not the harsh brilliance of war, but the gentle glow of sacrifice, of choosing others over himself. As his form dissolved into the Force, he felt no fear, only a peaceful certainty that his actions would echo far beyond the chamber. And in that radiant farewell, hope found its first true foundation. 80, the iconic symbol of hope. After Galen's sacrifice, the rebellion did not merely remember him, they honored him. His family crest, once a private sigil of a lineage lost to tragedy, became a symbol adopted by those who sought to resist the Empire. It appeared on pilots' helmets, starship hulls, and secret communications passed between rebel cells. Though many who bore the symbol never knew his name, they felt the meaning woven into its design: courage in the face of tyranny, sacrifice in service of freedom, light kindled from shadows. The crest became a beacon, rallying hearts weary from oppression. And somewhere in the quiet currents of the Force, Galen's spirit lingered, watching as the spark he ignited grew into a fire that would one day reshape the galaxy. 81. A clone's awakening. Though Galen's life ended in a flash of brilliance, his story did not rest. On Camino, within vats of cold fluid and humming machinery, a clone opened his eyes, a genetic echo crafted to replace what Vader had lost. At first, he moved like a shadow of the original, skilled, powerful, and bound to instinctive obedience. But memory, even fractured, is a stubborn thing. Flashes of faces, voices, and emotions he had never lived rippled through his thoughts like reflections on disturbed water. Juno's smile, Koda's guidance, the ache of sacrifice. These remnants stirred something deep within him, a pull toward identity, toward meaning. And as he stepped from the laboratory into the world beyond, he carried with him a question the Sith had never expected. Who am I, truly? In that question, a new journey quietly awakened. 82. Battles without memory. The clone who carried Galen's face found himself thrust into battles that echoed a past he could not fully recall. His muscles moved with instinctive precision, reacting to threats before thought could intervene, as though guided by shadows of forgotten training. Yet every confrontation left him with a quiet unease, flashes of déjà vu, the sense that he had fought these wars before under different stars, with different intentions. He felt both powerful and hollow, as though his strength belonged to someone else. In the stillness between skirmishes, he reached inward, trying to grasp memories that slipped away like mist through his fingers. And though he could not name the figure who shaped his movements or the emotions stirring within him, he sensed the Force gently urging him toward truth. 83. The search for Juno. Among the scattered remnants of his past, one name rose again and again in the clone's mind: Juno. He did not know why her face haunted him like a beacon in the night, or why her absence felt like a wound carved from longing. But each time her name whispered through his thoughts, the Force trembled with recognition. Driven by this instinctive pull, he began searching for her across the galaxy, through abandoned outposts, starship wreckage, and secret Imperial data streams. His journey was quiet but relentless, guided less by strategy and more by emotion. And with every step, he felt the faint warmth of connection growing stronger, as though Juno herself was a star calling him through the darkness. He did not yet know the truth, that she had once been the heart of his soul, but the Force remembered for him. 84. Facing Boba Fett. As the clone pursued the scattered threads of his identity, he crossed paths with one of the galaxy's most relentless hunters, Boba Fett. Their encounter unfolded beneath storm-swept skies, the air thick with tension and the promise of conflict. Fett moved with the cold precision of a seasoned tracker, his armor glinting like a silent warning. The clone met him not with fear, but with a strange calm. The same calm Galen had once felt when facing impossible odds. Their clash was swift and fierce, a dance of blaster fire and force-fueled strikes. Yet beneath the battle's intensity, the clone sensed that Fett was not his true enemy, only another obstacle placed by those who feared what he might uncover. And as the storm eased, he continued his search, guided by a purpose deeper than memory. 85. The return to Kamino. Drawn by fragmented memories and the quiet pull of destiny, the clone found himself returning to Kamino, the storm-lashed world where his second life had begun. The rain fell in endless sheets, drumming softly against reflective walkways and towering spires, as though the planet itself whispered secrets of creation and loss. He walked through sterile corridors illuminated by pale blue light, each step stirring echoes of the original Galen's pain, hope, and transformation. In the depths of the cloning facility, he saw rows of empty vats and flickering consoles marking the experiments that had shaped him. The truth pressed against him like the weight of the waves outside. He was not a shadow meant to replace another, but a being who must choose his own path. And in the quiet hum of machinery, he felt that choice calling. 86. Breaking the cycle. As the clone confronted the legacy of the Sith, he understood the pattern that had defined both his existence and Galen's, a cycle of obedience, betrayal, and self-sacrifice orchestrated by Vader and the Emperor. But this time, something shifted. He refused to be shaped by the same forces that had manipulated the original. When Vader attempted once again to tighten his grasp, to mold this new version into a weapon of control, the clone stepped away, not with rage, but with resolve. He chose to break free from the chains that had bound his predecessor. This act was quiet yet monumental, a gentle defiance echoing with the strength of someone learning that destiny is not a cage. Through this choice, he became more than a continuation of a broken lineage. He became the author of a new future. 87. The Duel of Mirrors. At the climax of his internal struggle, the clone was forced to face an unexpected adversary, a perfect, unyielding clone engineered to embody the darkest version of Galen's potential. Their confrontation felt like a duel between echoes, two reflections carved from the same source, yet shaped by opposite truths. Their blades clashed in showers of light beneath Kamino's storm-heavy clouds, each strike heavy with symbolism. The perfect clone fought with precision, his movements cold and relentless, representing everything Galen had once feared becoming. But the awakened clone fought with something deeper: emotion, compassion, the fragile yet powerful spark of free will. In defeating his mirrored shadow, he proved not just his strength, but his capacity to grow beyond what he was designed to be. And in that victory, he stepped fully into his own identity. 88. The fate left, untold. Even after the storms of Kamino settled into memory, the clone's path remained wrapped in quiet mystery. History recorded only fragments: the missions he undertook, the rebellions he aided, the shadows he slipped through like drifting smoke. Yet the deeper truth of his fate faded into whispers, lost between conflicting accounts and forgotten archives. Some believed he perished striking against the Empire. Others claimed He wandered the galaxy searching for peace, guided by memories not truly his own. And a few sensed his presence lingering in the Force, a gentle echo that flickered like starlight through forgotten corners of the galaxy. Though the details remain unspoken, one truth endures. His journey was his own, shaped not by creators or masters, but by the quiet choices of a heart learning how to feel. 89. A life between light and shadow. Both Galen and his clone existed in a rare place within the Force, suspended between the teachings of Jedi and Sith, yet belonging fully to neither. Their lives became reflections of the galaxy's own struggle between hope and despair, violence and compassion. They were shaped by darkness, yet drawn toward light, trained to destroy, yet destined to protect. This duality gave their story a haunting beauty, like dusk settling between day and night. In moments of silence, one could imagine them standing in that twilight, where shadow softens and light deepens, listening to the Force breathe around them. Their existence reminded the galaxy that balance is not found in extremes, but in the courage to walk the middle path, even when it trembles beneath one's feet. 90. The nature of choice. At the heart of Galen's legacy lies a gentle but profound truth. Destiny is shaped not by the circumstances of one's birth, but by the choices made along the way. Galen was taken by darkness, molded into a weapon, and taught that power must always be wielded through fear. Yet again and again, he chose differently. He chose mercy over hatred, connection over isolation, hope over despair. Each choice was like a small lantern glowing in a storm, guiding him toward a future neither Vader nor the Emperor could predict. His journey teaches that every being, no matter how lost, no matter how wounded, carries the power to turn toward the light. And through those quiet, courageous choices, the Force reveals its gentlest wisdom. 91. The power of compassion. Compassion became the quiet thread woven through Galen's transformation, a fragile warmth that survived even the harshest shadows of his upbringing. It revealed itself in gentle gestures, the lives he spared, the allies he protected, the softening of his gaze when he witnessed suffering. Though the Sith taught that compassion was weakness, Galen discovered it was the source of his truest strength. In caring for others, he found the courage to defy Vader, to challenge the Emperor, and to confront the darkness within himself. Compassion did not erase his pain. It illuminated it, showing him how far he had come and how far he could still rise. Through that tender light, he learned that the Force was not simply power to wield, but a bond shared between all living things, steady and eternal. 92. Violence and redemption. Galen's life was shaped by violence, battles fought in secret, missions carried out under the shadow of the Empire, confrontations that left worlds trembling in their wake. Yet redemption blossomed within him like a slow dawn breaking across a scarred horizon. He realized that redemption was not the act of forgetting one's past, but the willingness to face it with honesty. In acknowledging the harm he had caused, he found the strength to choose another path. Every life saved, every ally protected, every act of courage became a step toward healing. Redemption was not a single moment for him, but a journey, a quiet procession of choices that carried him gradually from shadow to light. And through this journey, he proved that even the fiercest storms can give way to gentle skies. 93. The weight of freedom. Freedom was something Galen never understood until he stood outside the reach of Vader's commands. At first, it felt disorienting, like stepping into open space after a lifetime spent in narrow corridors. Without orders, without a mission shaped by cruelty, he faced a truth both liberating and overwhelming. Freedom requires choice, and choice requires courage. He learned that freedom was not the absence of responsibility, but the opportunity to shape one's own destiny. It meant forging new relationships, trusting new allies, and embracing the uncertainties of a galaxy wider than he had ever imagined. Yet with each choice he made, on his own terms, he felt the weight of freedom settle into something gentle and grounding. And in that newfound space, he discovered who he truly wished to become. 94. Hope from unexpected places. Galen's life proved that hope can blossom from the unlikeliest of beginnings, even from a childhood torn apart by loss, even from years spent under the cold shadow of a Sith Lord. He was shaped as an instrument of fear, yet somehow carried within him the quiet capacity to inspire. His courage breathed life into the early rebellion, stirring a unity that seasoned leaders had long struggled to ignite. Those who met him felt something rare, a sense that change was possible, that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, light could find its way through. Hope did not come to Galen in grand revelations. It arrived in whispers, in Juno's steady gaze, in Koda's rough encouragement, in the quiet bravery of ordinary people. From these soft sparks, a brighter future took root. 95. Lessons in Identity. Galen's journey offered a profound meditation on identity, on the difference between who we are told to be and who we choose to become. For years, he believed his life was defined by Vader's will, by the title Starkiller, by the missions that carved scars across his heart. But slowly, through friendship and compassion, he realized that identity is not forged by chains, but by choices. He learned that he could honor the child he once was, reclaim the name Galen, and shape a destiny unbound by the expectations others imposed on him. This revelation was gentle, unfolding like dawn across quiet waters. And in that awakening, he showed the galaxy that identity is not a prison. It is a journey, constantly rediscovered with each step taken toward the light. 96. Destiny's quiet hand. Throughout his life, the Force guided Galen with a hand so subtle he rarely recognized it. It whispered through dreams, tugged gently at his heart during moments of doubt, and nudged him toward paths he never intended to walk. Destiny did not shout. It murmured. It led him from shadow to compassion, from isolation to love, from destruction to sacrifice. Each turning point felt like a coincidence at first, a meeting, a hesitation, a fleeting vision. Yet in retrospect, they formed a tapestry woven with quiet intention. The Force did not force him onto a single path. It merely illuminated possibilities, trusting him to choose. And through those choices, he became both student and teacher of destiny's soft wisdom, leaving ripples that would echo far beyond one lifetime. 97. The ripple through the rebellion. Though Galen's life flickered briefly in the vast timeline of the galaxy, the impact he left behind rippled outward like gentle waves across a still lake. The leaders he saved went on to forge a movement that would challenge the Empire's iron rule. Pilots spoke his name in quiet gratitude. Soldiers carried his crest into battles he would never witness. Even those who never met him felt the influence of his sacrifice in every victory the rebellion achieved. Galen's legacy was not one of conquest, but of inspiration, a reminder that one act of courage can ignite 1,000 more. The Force seemed to carry his presence through corridors of strategy meetings, through whispered plans, through the hearts of those who dared to fight. And in these echoes, his spirit lived on, guiding the rebellion toward its destiny. 98. Legends lost and found. Over time, the stories surrounding Galen became tangled in myth and speculation. Some accounts painted him as a wrathful warrior of impossible power, capable of bending starships and storms to his will. Others remembered him as a tragic figure, shaped by sorrow, yet redeemed by love. There were even whispers that he had survived his sacrifice, wandering the galaxy in quiet anonymity. Most of these tales faded, drifting into obscurity as the rebellion grew into the New Republic. Yet every so often, an old holocron or soldier's journal resurfaced, revealing glimpses of the man behind the legend. Not a monster, not a myth, but a human being searching for his place in the stars. And in those rediscovered stories, Galen's true legacy shone with renewed clarity, gentle and profound. 99. The Dream of Balance. Galen's journey reflected one of the oldest truths in the galaxy, the search for balance. He was raised in darkness, yet drawn instinctively toward light. He wielded immense power, yet yearned for peace. He was shaped as a weapon, yet became a protector. In many ways, Galen embodied the fragile equilibrium that the Force eternally seeks, the harmony between strength and compassion, action and reflection, shadow and illumination. His life revealed that balance is not a state one achieves, but a practice, a path walked with intention and humility. Even in his moments of doubt, he moved closer to that harmony. And in doing so, he taught that balance is not the absence of darkness, but the courage to let light shine through it. 100. A star that burns. Briefly, yet brightly Galen's life, and the echo carried by his clone, may have been brief in the grand tapestry of the galaxy, but it burned with a brilliance that touched countless destinies. Born in shadows, forged in conflict, he rose not through conquest, but through compassion, choosing a path that defied everything he had been shaped to become. His story reminds us that even the smallest spark can light the darkest horizon, that even a heart raised in silence can learn to love, and that even a weapon can choose to become a guardian. Though his journey ended among lightning and sacrifice, the warmth of his legacy drifted onward like stardust carried by the Force. And in that gentle glow, his story continues forever. And now, as our quiet journey through the life of Starkiller comes to a peaceful close, let your breathing slow once more, and feel the weight of the day fade into the soft glow of the stars. We've drifted through shadows and sacrifice, through memories shaped by darkness and redeemed by light, and through the gentle hum of the Force that carried Galen Merrick from secrecy into the warm embrace of hope. If these stories helped you fall asleep or brought a little calm into your corner of the galaxy, I'm so glad you were here tonight. When your eyes grow heavy again, or when you're ready to dream of another world among the stars, you're always welcome back. If you'd like more peaceful voyages through the lore of Star Wars, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share which character, planet, or era you'd love to drift off to next. And when you're ready to continue your journey, tap the end screen to visit the next bedtime tale and fall asleep to another quiet night beneath the twin suns. Rest well, traveler. May the Force bring balance to your mind and peace to your dreams.